Welcome to today's webinar titled Combat-Related Reactions, What Service Members and Families Need to Know. We are thrilled to have Tierra Ward with us today. Tierra Ward is passionate about assisting military members and their families. As an Army brat, U.S. Navy veteran, and a former military spouse, she knows firsthand about these stressors. She understands the day-to-day needs of military families, military deployments, as well as developing plans to transition out of the military. Without further delay, I will turn things over to Tierra Ward.
Hi there. Thanks, Dan, for the introduction. Again, my name's Tierra, and before we get started, let's start with me reading a disclaimer. And it starts with the appearance of hyperlinks does not constitute endorsement by the Department of Defense of this website or the information, products, or services contained therein. For other than authorized activities such as military exchanges and morale, welfare, and recreation sites, the Department of Defense does not exercise any editorial control over the information that you may find at these sites. Such links are provided consistent with the stated purpose of the Department of Defense sponsored webinar. So as mentioned earlier, we're talking today about combat-related stress reactions, what service members and their families need to know. Today we'll chat about some of the objectives and some of the things we're going to talk about in this presentation. Defining combat-related stress. We'll also talk about possible ongoing reactions, how reactions can affect family members, coping skills for managing stress, communication skills, how family members can support their service members, and we'll also identify signs that service members need to know in order to determine whether or not they're ready to seek help or in need of help. What is combat-related stress? Well, it's an expected and predictable reaction to combat experiences. So think about it like this. When individuals are in a combat zone where they're under constant psychological stressors, such as poor diet, extreme temperatures, or a limited opportunity to hygiene, there's a potential for an increased risk of combat-related stress when they return back stateside. Military personnel in combat zones frequently have reactions to their combat experiences. Combat-related stress is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation or event. It's a reaction to a continued state of alertness and hypervigilance. One of the things that people tend to mix combat-related stress up with is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And PTSD is a psychological diagnosis that impairs functioning. It's considered very serious where combat-related stress is standard. So keep in mind that combat-related stress is a short-term reaction to being in a war zone. I can remember returning from Kuwait and Iraq, and I remember just a few occasions just reaching for my N16. I was in a constant state of alertness as well as hypervigilance while I was over there. And so it was the norm for me to have my N16. And so when I came back stateside, I just found myself just reaching for it ever so often. And so that would be a combat stress that's short-term. And like I said, keep in mind, it is definitely short-term. Ongoing reactions to combat-related stress. There's quite a bit of check marks or checkers that will help you to identify this. Strong emotions, so feelings such as nervousness or worry, feeling emotionally cut off, or feelings of irritability, anger, or rage. If you're startled by responses, these are all ongoing reactions to combat-related stress. Another clicker would be trouble making decisions, if you're having trouble making decisions. So problems with alcohol or drug use, or problems concentrating. If you have no sense of the future, emotional numbness, or feelings of guilt or shame. Again, these are ongoing reactions to combat-related stress. Physical symptoms such as racing heart or a sweating or nausea If you're having problems with intimacy, nightmares or difficulty sleeping or even flashbacks, again, these are all ongoing reactions to combat-related stress. Stress reactions can affect family members as well as the family unit. It creates a bit of a tug of war of emotions. This tug of war, say for instance, the service member on one end, he may have feelings of isolation or feeling alienated, hurt, or disappointed. Where on the other end of the rope or the spectrum, the family members may become angry or resentful because the service member may not be ready to talk about some of the things that occurred in theater. I can remember needing to take a few weeks off and just slowly readjust back into just the stateside living when I returned. I didn't feel like talking about the details of what I experienced, and my family, they had to respect that, or I had to help them to try to understand that. And so, like I said, that's just another reaction to how family members are affected due to stress that occurs in the combat zone. Family members may also feel emotionally drained from this tug of war. Physical exhaustion, concern and safety over their loved ones, or even overwhelmed by the multiple roles. Anger over their news reports or media reactions. When I returned from Iraq, I remember speaking to my mom, and one of the first things that she said was, "Did you see Jessica Lynch while you were over there?" And I'm like, "Who is Jessica Lynch?" And she was the soldier that was the prisoner of war. And my mother was on the edge of her seat watching the news, just with nervousness, and I was back stateside. But again, it's just a reaction that a family member experienced due to the media reports. Coping with stress. You want to recognize that stress reactions are completely normal. Share your feelings with your spouse or someone within your support system. Another way to cope with stress, you want to definitely postpone any big or personal life-changing decisions. Remember the basics of self-care. Diet, exercise, and sleep are imperative when you return. You want to find things that you enjoy and give yourself the time to recover. So it's okay to take as much time as you need to smoothly and slowly transition back into life before you deployed. The best thing for you to do is to utilize your support system and get your rest. Communication. Stressed spouses may easily misunderstand one another upon their return. You want to own your feelings by using I statements. What you don't want to do is use you statements. For example, you make me so mad. That's blaming. You don't care about me. That's accusing. Or you shut up. That's ordering. Using I statements, I don't know, sometimes it's just a recipe for an unnecessary argument. I'd like to encourage you to consider using the I statements, such as I feel annoyed when I return from working a full day, and when I come home from work to find your clothes on the floor next to the hamper. The feelings are identified, and these are my emotions. This is how I feel, and this is how you make me feel when I'm in this situation. So it's not accusing, it's not blaming, and it's not ordering. Another example of an I statement is, I feel upset when you raise your voice at me because I don't want yelling to be the norm in our relationship. So again, it's not saying you're always yelling or you need to be quiet. It's saying this is how I feel when you do this. Another thing that you want to definitely take a look at is be specific rather than general when you're communicating. You want to be a good listener. Earlier relationship problems with intimacy and commitment and money can be exaggerated. So yet again, try or strive if you can to use the I statements to avoid the you statements or the blaming and the accusing or even the ordering. How can families support their service members? Well, you can be flexible and supportive. You want to provide companionship and a sense of belonging within your household. You want to be available to listen when the service member is ready to talk. You want to be patient and give yourself and the service member time and have realistic expectations. They may not be ready to talk when you're ready to talk, but be prepared to listen when they're ready to talk. That's for example. You want to remember that service members and their families are resilient. You can pick up and move quickly. You can establish a household. You can develop a new set of friends at a new duty station. You can work alongside just about anybody. Civilian families don't even know how difficult that can be, but yet again, service members and their families, we're resilient. Today we have more knowledge and resources to help service members to deal with stress. So don't feel like you're out there by yourself. There are so many resources available to y'all. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little later on. You want to be honest with yourself about how you're doing. If you're stressed or you feel things are out of control, it's okay to say that that's the case, and it's okay to get help. Now let's talk about when it's necessary to seek help. If you're using a lot of drugs and alcohol, that's a red flag. That's an indicator that it's time to get help. If you're having uncontrollable crying, that's an indicator that it truly is time to get help. If you're having suicidal thoughts, remember, we need you. That is an indicator that you need to get help, and it's okay to get that help. If you're having experiences of just continued isolation, laying in your bed, not getting up, not interacting with your social circle, that's an indicator that it's time to get help. If you're lacking self-care, you're not taking a shower or a bath, you're not taking care of yourself, that's an indicator that you may need to get some help. If you're having feelings of hopelessness, that is truly another indicator that it is time to get help, and it is okay to get that help. There's so many resources that are available. You can call Military One Source. We are here 24/7, and we offer 12 sessions of the non-medical counseling. Now, you would have to go through a screening process. We got to get your information, and we got to create a record for you. That's just basic protocol. But once you get that, no matter what the decision is, we will get you the help that you need. Another option, you can see your chaplain. You can use your local base mental health or even the health clinic on base. These are all options that are available to you to get help. I want you to remember that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. I'm going to say that again. Asking for help truly is a sign of strength, and it's not a sign of weakness. So if you need it, get it. In summary, combat-related stress is totally normal, okay? It's normal when you're involved in an abnormal situation or event. Stress responses can affect families, okay? But you want to be patient and give yourself time and give your family time as well. You want to seek help in stress reactions if they persist. If it's interfering with your day-to-day, if it's interfering with your functioning, it's okay to ask for help. And so now I'll open up the floor to questions. So does anyone have any questions?
We do have a couple of questions that have come in. The first question reads, how do I figure out what I enjoy in the midst of living in a stressful environment?
That is a great question. One of the things that you can do is you can go for a run or a walk to clear your thoughts. Now, not a PT run, but just a light jog or a walk, just to take time to get away from the stressful environment and just to breathe. Sometimes it's okay to just get some fresh air and see you're able to get yourself out of the environment to see things from a fresh perspective. One of the things that I can remember when I was in theater, I had a bucket list. I used to say, when I get back stateside, I'm going to do this. When I get back, I'm going to do that. You know, you want to maybe think back while you take that walk. to some of those things that you talked about wanting to do when you got back stateside, and start making a list to try to accomplish that. Another thing that you can do is blog, read a book, and again, outside of the stressful environment. Here at Military One Source, we offer health and wellness coaching. They are paid to help you to accomplish your goals and figure out your goals. They offer assessments to help you to figure out what it is that you truly do enjoy doing, and they will help link arms with you and help you to accomplish that. So those are a few resources or a few ideas on what you can do to enjoy yourself or help identify who you are in the midst of a stressful environment.
Thank you. Next question reads, what do you mean by postpone big decisions?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, coming back from theater, like we mentioned before, things can be very stressful, and sometimes you may have startled responses or whatever the case. You don't want to use that time, that chunk of time when you first get back to, for example, invite the in-laws to live with you for the next 3 months while they get their house built. That may not be the best decision. You're still trying to get acclimated to your environment. You want to identify what your true priorities are with a clear head, stress-free, and in a healthy mindset. And sometimes that's not the case when you first return. So sometimes you can neglect the priorities when you make rash decisions, or if you're in a state of stress, you can make poor choices, or they can affect the household in the long term. And so that's what I meant when I said you want to maybe hold off on making big decisions until things are back flatlined or baselined.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we don't have any more questions that have come in, so I would like to thank you, Tierra Ward, for sharing your invaluable experience and expertise. I would also like to thank our attendees for participating in today's webinar. And if you find yourself having questions after the webinar is over, please email moswebinars@militaryOneSource.com, and I'll send the questions over to our presenter and get an answer back to you. At this time, this will conclude today's webinar on combat-related stress reactions, what service members and families need to know. Thank you all for attending, and have a great day.